It automatically records. Yeah. I think it automatically records. Sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, yeah, maybe that's the intrinsic part that I was feeling that like that relationships are hard and it's like relating is I had this thought recently. It's like relating just is like we're always relating, right? We're always in relation. Like there's nothing like we can't kind of get out of that. That's just a part of life. But relationships, like being in relationships, choosing them, like having this way that I don't know that we decide to live, or like you said, Mo, that is imposed on us, or like what we think it should be. That's hard, and yeah, I mean it just is, but I don't know. I'm gonna just stop here because I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'll
I
add.
wanted to say that I feel you, and if you need to cry, feel free. I bawled my eyes out talking to Kelly the other day. It just like I was just waterworks, but it was so good,
Yeah. Yeah.
needed.
And that part too, it's like when I say like relationships are hard and I feel like crying about it or whatever, I mean, there's not to be, what's that word? I can't forget what it is, but there's I don't know, there's beauty to it too, like I'm so passionate about relationships too. On the other hand, like it's one of my favorite things in life and to talk about and to be in. I feel like I'm here on Earth specifically for relationships and like the evolvement of whatever relationships means and is. So yeah.
Agreed. I think as relational therapists, we all are here for that.
Mhm.
And sex.
Yeah, that too.
Sex.
This is what we
Definitely.
geek out on, right? This is what we come here and talk about. This is why we do what we do. Like we get to geek out with people on these things. And it's interesting, Melissa, when you were starting to say that, I was like, oh, you and I are usually on the same page. Like, yeah, this is what it is. Like we would sort of like want to take up for the other side or be like, oh, wait, like make apologies for like, hey, we're not here to just push one way, this, that, and the other. But I have been talking with Mo quite a bit about what she's going through and a few other friends, and I'm not in an intense relationship right now, and I keep feeling grateful for that because I've got enough going on in my own life. I'm like, I don't know how. I can't imagine. I'm sure if I were in it, it would be fine, but I can't imagine how I would be able to take that on top of everything else that's going on in life. And so I mean, it's a choice, and if that's it is. And just to also talk about the whole relational piece, I don't think we should be called marriage and family therapist or this kind of therapist or that kind of coach. Like it's relational. Like we are relational people or relational therapists, relational coaches, whatever. And it's interesting to see how you are reacting to other people or how you are reacting if you're not involved with other people. And so it's a huge swirl of really difficult things, whether you're dealing with someone else's things or not. But it's almost impossible to just feel happy and stable all the time in it. That's just an impossible.
Hmm.
You're going to go through turbulence.
Yeah.
That is so
And
true.
regardless of whether it's an intimate romantic relationship, Kelly, you keep talking about you're not in a
Yeah.
relationship, but you've got a lot of people in your life. And I think,
Yeah.
those relationships are where we meet our edges and where we grow. And like, I think, yes, there's, intimate relationships, long-term relationships that, Melissa, Wayne, and I are sort of dealing with right now. Um, but that sort of renders me a little bit like I don't have the bandwidth to do some of the life things that I also need to be doing, I'm a long-term caregiver for my parents, and so that right now things are okay with them, but it's like, there's this ebb and flow. Like sometimes you got to deal with this aspect of life and sometimes you got to, but at every point, I feel really grateful because there's so much growth just happening all the time and it's always in relation to other people. It's in those relationships that we have, the hard ones, the easy ones, the supportive ones, the supportive ones that become not so supportive, you know, the not so supportive ones that suddenly become supportive, like those are where we learn, where we grow, where we expand. And it's really, you know, what we love as therapists and coaches, and why we get into this work, because we get to, right? We get to do the work that we're also doing in our life. So
Yeah.
it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has anything to do with it, or is it going to take it off track, but there's something I've been thinking about lately and something I've been listening to that kind of resonates with me. So I've been so after to what you just said, Mo, and then and what Kelly said, I just think that how do I say this? I think that we've gotten away from we've become so individualistic in our society. We've gotten away from the idea of the village mentality. We've gotten away from support system. Like, because imagine, Mo, if you had support, for you, your family, helping you with caregiving, that you can have time to do the other things you want to do and have relationships as well. Like, same for you, Kelly, if you had the time to have a relationship and have some help around other things. I think that we become this individualistic society. We put ourselves in this bubble now where we don't really have support. We don't reach out. We kind of keep it into ourselves, and we don't have the help that we need. And so we're dealing with things by ourselves, and we don't, and it's not helpful for us. We don't make it like that. Like, everybody wants to say that they do this thing on their, I made it on my own. I did this on my own. I always think about, like, how much more when people talk about, oh, I want this, I want that. Imagine coming together with five of your friends and buying a mansion, right? So then, or buying a big house or buying a big property and building a house. Like, we've gotten away from the idea of support and help. And I think that it's hurt us so much, and it put us in a space to where now we're dealing with so many things by ourselves, and we don't have the help that we would normally have within the village. If we, that, and so now we've taken on so much more that we not normally would ever have to take on, but now we're taking on a lot as individuals, and then we're wondering why we're struggling, and, oh, like, I feel like I have so much, or I feel like I can't do all these things, because we're trying to do it alone and by ourselves, or we're trying to do it with just our partner in this small bubble that we really don't have the resources and the support system to help us really with the things that we need, we would normally outsource, so yeah, that's just kind of my thought recently, especially after the talk we had last week, and I kind of had a conversation with Melissa. I said, I feel like we're just trying to do this alone, and we don't really have the support system that we actually need. So we don't talk to these people because we don't want them to judge us. So we don't talk to these people because, for all the reasons we don't talk to people, we'll really get the help that we need.
I think what you just touched on was like that last piece, like why we don't collect, like lean in on to the collective, right? Lean in on our friends, our extended networks, because we're afraid they're going to judge us, right? Like, we're doing something that's so outside of the scope of normative culture that we can't even like now reach out to our like community, you know. um yeah, and that isolates us, right? And I think, this is really what it comes down to, and why we do this podcast and why we focus on this work, to let people know that this is real, and people are out here. We are out here trying to do this, and if you're trying to do this out there, you're not alone. um and let's build on this collective, right? Let's not do this alone. Let's be able to share what's happening in our lives with other people, because they're also going through it, right? It, non-monogamy is hard, and we have come out of the pendulum swinging to that direction where it's like, you know, it's got to be like, it can't be hierarchical. It's got to be relationship anarchy. But we're swinging back to the middle, right? Like, as you said, the pendulum swinging to this place where it's like, no, this is a freaking hard lifestyle, because we're constantly swimming upstream against societal norms.
Yeah.
And um and part of that is not being able to reach out to our community and say, this is what I'm going through and this is what I'm struggling with, because most people would say, well, that's what you get for you know doing the thing that's not normal.
Right. And the crazy part about it, the part about the ironic part about that is that monogamous people, a lot of time, and this isn't anything, I think that we, in general, humans do this because of where we are today and just way of thinking, is that I feel like a lot of times in monogamy, like when it becomes uncomfortable, you just leave the relationship. Like, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just go leave this one, then I'll go start another one. And then I'll just become a serial monogamous. Like I'll just constantly just restart and be like, and I won't see anything wrong with that, but I'll see something wrong with how you relate to your, like, oh well, you got two boyfriends, you got two girlfriends, or that's a lot. I could never do that. And still, you still never speak about, like, but when you're uncomfortable in a situation, you go create a new relationship, and that's not problematic for you. Like I know a lot of people today, like long-term relationships today are like 2 years. Oh yeah, I was in a relationship for 2 years. Or I was in a relationship, like that's long term. I'm like, wow, that's pretty short. Like how many relationships you been in the
Yeah,
past few years?
I think normalizing that is 2 years is not a long-term relationship. And we do live in a time where serial monogamy's gotten even shorter and shorter because there's so much more uh opportunity at our fingertips with the dating apps, right? Um, yeah. I mean, serial monogamy is obviously, I think, is just it's non-monogamy with a little bow on it. Right? Like a cute little socially acceptable bow on it.
I just told my client, I said, when you're dating, I said, no, it's nowhere around it. When you're dating, you're not exclusive. That is a form of non-monogamy. Like it's
When
what
you're
it
dating and
is.
not exclusive, yeah, that is
Yeah,
also, yeah.
yeah. I said, we just don't name it. And to your point, back to the topic, I think that really, yes, relationships are hard. I think that when they become even harder when we go in and we want things, and we want to feel comfortable, we want to feel safe, and then but the person we're dealing with, they may not be on the same page as us, so which causes conflict. And then how do we resolve these things? Like what is my part, what is the person I'm choosing ability to for resolution? Like, what does that look like? Are we able to come together because of the work that we've done? And like you said, we're always forever growing. I know that me and Melissa at 22 years still struggle with things because there are things that come up for us, and so I can only imagine people who haven't had the amount of just trust that we have for one another, or the work that we put in. I couldn't imagine how that is. I tell her all the time, I said, man, I'm so thankful that I can have certain types of conversation with you that I can't have with anybody else. Like when dating someone else or whatever. So honestly, I couldn't imagine, so sorry. So me saying, what I'm saying is that it's unimaginable. Like it's hard for me to speak on all the other people where they are, because I know that I have the pleasure, or the, what is it called? Privilege of having Melissa to talk to. And because I have that, it's hard for me to go out and date people or talk to people, because it becomes really difficult. And I'd be like, man, Melissa, it's like so hard out here.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
I
Um,
think so.
yes. Mhm.
I know that was all over the place too.
No, it wasn't. It makes sense. Don't look at me because I'm on another world and page right now. It's like each part is making sense, and I'm trying to like make sense of it all together. Like, but I don't think maybe it doesn't need to be made sense altogether. Maybe it just, hearing all the pieces.
I just had to have a conversation with my partner's mom, who just does not understand this way of being, and this dynamic, and we had a one-on-one, and she's like, she said, where I'm from, you just have one person, and that's who you deal with, and you kind of, you choose that person, and that's what you got. Like you made your bed, you lay in it, so that's the person that you're kind of with. And I was like, man, that sounds like so I couldn't imagine that. Like I just got to be with the person that I've chosen, and that's it. And like that.
I think that speaks a lot to, so you were talking about, like people just leaving when it gets hard or whatnot, which, I mean, I'm not condoning that. At the same time, like speaking of the pendulum effect, I feel like that's kind of what's been happening too. It's like we're contrasting, we're kind of pushing back on that I think, norm that used to be, where it's like we got to stay in the relationship no matter, whatever, because that's what we agreed to, that's what we're here, and I
Mhm.
think people are, and in addition to having options, a lot of options, because of social media and whatnot, I think also we are in that pendulum effect where people are pushing back and saying like, no, I don't have to stay in a relationship because, that's what, I don't know, that's what we're told we should do and stick it out and whatnot. Like, I think people are, yeah, trying to find their individuality and their autonomy, I mean, and there's different groups of us and different cultures and groups of us that are probably more than others or whatnot. If we kind of come from already that type of culture background, that is about the collective, sometimes their kind of life and lesson or their journey and lesson is finding that individuality because they're so used to doing everything for and about the collective. And so,
Well,
I
I
don't
wanted
think
to sort of, yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead, Melissa. I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's okay. No, I think I was just gonna say, so one thing that I'm noticing for myself is especially like in social media, I've like really been trying to quiet social media and things like that. But even just with people around, it's like I'm noticing that I'll hear something and I'm like, wow, that sounds like really great idea, thought, concept, advice, opinion, or whatnot. And it is in and of itself. But also I notice how I think at one point I used to like be pulled in all the directions because I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's what I should be doing. I should be doing that thing because that sounds really on point. And then there might be a counter to that. I'm like, ooh, that sounds really good too. And then I realized like they're all really good points, but we all have to kind of like take a minute, pause, and listen for what we need, and what is fitting for our situation or our life or whatnot, because yeah, we're not all living the same experiences. So anyway.
Well, and I think what you're talking about is if we look at the collective, really like marriage doesn't fit into that, right? The collective is about weaving in and out of relationships as we need what is needed for us. So staying together doesn't make sense either for the collective, right? For the collective good, you don't just stick with one person and stay together, even if you're non monogamous, right? Like that's also a fucked up rule, right? Like I think that like if we're going to truly like embrace this idea of the collective and undo this idea of marriage and the patriarchy, then we need to embrace the fluidity of relationships in general. We do not need to stick with any one person. We live in a culture of life partners, right? This is my life partner, and then we're non-monogamous because that in and of itself also apes this idea of monogamy, right? Having a life partner that you build your life around and then you have multiple relationships around it apes monogamy. So the truth of real collective is dismantling the core couple, right? And that's where relationship anarchy came from. And so I think what you're saying, Melissa, is like, yeah, we also do need to move away from this idea that yes, there's serial monogamy, which apes monogamy. And then there's this type of non-monogamy where you've got this life partner, we're going to stay together forever at all costs because everyone's doing serial monogamy, right? Like both of those are also problematic, right? Both of those concepts. And we have to sometimes, from an individual perspective, for the greater good, do what we need to, right? It is for the greater good when we say, I can no longer be in this particular partnership. I've evolved away from it. That is for the greater good also, whether it feels like that or not in the moment.
Couldn't have said it any better. Yes. Yeah, I just recently heard this person's idea and I really liked it, of like I mean, and you kind of spoke on it and said it earlier, like relationships are, we lost Kelly.
She's
I'm
coming
here.
back.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Um,
She put a paper bag over her head all of a
yeah, I was
sudden.
like, how'd you do that? That's magical.
She's invisible.
Wow. Teach me. But yeah, how yeah, it was kind of this, I guess, quote unquote spiritual, perspective of relationships, and that their relationships are all about learning and all about growth. Like it's all about learning and growth and evolution. And if and I that really resonated with me. Like I think I deeply connect with relationships being all about learning and growth and expansion and evolution. Like, and if we
Evolving.
see it that way, yeah, evolving. And if we see it that way, then yeah, you're right. Like it is for the collective good to also shift in the ways that the relationship need to shift, or how it's shifting to not be in resistance to that out of fear, or I mean back to the fear, like out of fear or whatever. And so and it's scary. And yeah, we aren't really, I think, supported for that, or really built or resourced for that. And it's scary to, I mean, yeah, in so many ways, like in so many so many ways. So I
Yeah.
absolutely feel that what you said. And that's not to say, that's not poo-pooing on staying in relationships forever. And oh, that's the piece I wanted to add. He said that in addition to saying that relationships are all about learning and evolving, he was like, yeah, we keep saying this thing of like, we want to make it work. He was like, make what work? He was like, what are you talking about? Make what work? This is all about, the, like you said, that flow, that rhythm of the relationship. And if you're here for the lessons, like there's no such thing as making it work. Like you're here for what is to be,
I
like
love that you're
here for
here
you.
for the lessons. You're here for the lessons. That's the title of this episode. We're here for the lessons. We're
Mhm.
not here to try to fit into some fucking box. We're not here to, shove a square peg into a round hole. We are here to do what works for us right now. And we need to grow. Like we need to constantly be moving our plant into a bigger pot.
Yeah.
And
And I think too, because
sometimes,
if we, oh, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah,
No,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say sometimes we grow apart from people, and that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah.
It's the normal ebb and flow. And I think hanging on too tight to relationships, like we were talking about, Melissa, that fear is also problematic, right? And I think our culture is really good at doing that,
Hmm.
holding on really tightly to something, even though we've maybe outgrown it
Yeah.
out of fear. I feel that a lot. I ebb and flow through. I think about that and the fact that I'm always constantly moving cities. I am shifting friendships. I have like a handful of good friends that I can count on my hand, like people that I know I can go to. But like I have a lot of other friendships and relationships that I'm constantly weaving in and out of because that's natural for me, you know.
Hmm.
So I feel that deeply.
Yeah. And I want to acknowledge like that can be scary. I know, I think my past, a past self, if I heard someone or myself saying that of like, oh, relationships are about learning, we're here for the lessons, and like that would make me contract my body and cringe, because that doesn't feel safe. Like I don't, I get it. I know that people aren't always here for the lessons, nor do they want them, because that shit's hard. And like we're tired, we're exhausted, we're constantly feeling like we're facing something. Um, and so I want to acknowledge that hard part too. I'm definitely not saying like, hey, throw yourself into the lessons and whatever. Like, no, take care of yourself through it. But um, I think what I'm learning is that when I resist that, or I'm afraid of that, like I miss what is actually on the other end of it. And a lot of times it's much more beautiful, or more than I could have even imagined.
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying, in ways that I could never know until I go through it. But that safety kind of sometimes just, yeah, it kind of keeps us stuck in what feels safe in the moment, I guess, but not like kind of overall safe. And
Yeah, what's
so,
that cliche saying? The devil you know is safer than the devil you don't know, or something like that,
mhm.
right? Some
Yeah, exactly. And realizing that, like, oh, when I'm not trying to hang on or trying to make it work or whatnot, like there's actually a lot more space on the other end to still have something beautiful. Like there, like it doesn't have to be this all or nothing thing. I think it usually isn't an all or nothing thing. I think it's kind of become that because that's how, we've been playing the game. But in my experiences, and it's never, very rarely is it all or nothing for me. Like in all the relationships and connections that have had, I don't think there's any that is just like cut off and we're just, it's done. It didn't work, that failed.
Hmm.
Like there's always still some kind of presence or something or there. And that's not for everybody, but that's just, my experience that I'm sharing.
Yeah, I I feel like me and Melissa are doing all the talking,
I
so
know.
Kelly and Wayne jump in. But
I'm keeping my mouth shut for a reason. Like, go ahead. I'll share if you can.
me and Melissa are going through it.
I love it. I love it.
I want to say that I do tend to cut people out of my life pretty easily and quickly at times. That feels in alignment with things, the way that I operate sometimes. And then sometimes I wonder about that. But there was something else in there. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Someone else
Yeah.
talk.
But that's a choice. I mean, and I definitely am not saying that it should, like it should be the way that I was describing it. And I think that, yeah, your awareness of it and for whatever, like you said, it aligns for how you work. That's
Yeah.
that's great too.
Yeah.
For me, this brings it all back to relational because, like, the reason I've been keeping my mouth shut is the first whole half of what y'all were talking about. Like, I kept thinking politically and religiously and all these things that I deal with, right? And I'm like, I don't want to bring that into this conversation. Maybe another time, great, another episode, whatever. And then as y'all were talking, I kept thinking about grace. And like what they're talking about is give grace for yourself, give grace for other people. And sometimes, yeah, that's easy. Sometimes like, oh yeah, we can do that. And other times like, fuck you. Like, no, that doesn't feel good. And it's not working for me. So I have to step away. But to be able to lean into grace is a really big deal, whether it's for someone else or for yourself. And that's like that is kind of what relationships are about, I feel like you have to honor what you're going through and while also trying to honor what other people are going through. And like for that to actually align is almost impossible. So the fact that we any of us do any of this long term is amazing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did that take us in a whole other direction? But that's
No, I think it reminded me of what Melissa was talking about. And Melissa said that, like, what she was talking about, like, we stay in situations out of fear and, or the sort of like the black and white, the all or nothing, And I think with, to bring it back to non-monogamy breaks us out of the not all or nothing. But like, if we're not careful with that, we can become rigid in our non-monogamy too, right? We can become, well, like we're already doing this so great. Like we've got these multiple relationships happening and da 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 da. But where are we keeping ourselves stuck, right? Even in this new paradigm that's supposedly open, right? Like that's what came up for me. Like we could be doing non-monogamy and we've broken out of the all or nothing thinking. And now like it's not all or nothing. Like our relationships are fluid and things like that. But in that we can get rigid with our thinking, especially around commitments or, you know, so I think, constantly looking at that can be
and,
helpful.
and so if you are committed to it, like okay, we're in it, we're here, and then you have a bad day, you have a bad moment. That's where the grace for yourself comes in. oh wait, I have been doing this and I am committed to it, but I'm having a bad day with it, and being okay with having a bad day with it and being able to like let that go both ways is kind of what I'm saying. Is that registering at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grace is important, Reverend Kelly.
I think we're all going through our own shit and we're all like, there are too many therapists and coaches in the fucking room right now.
Wayne, what's going on?
No,
Hey,
no, yeah. I'm like Kelly. I'm listening because so many things come up for me. Me and Kelly. I think that when you said about like whoever does it, it's like great because it's so. And that's what like it's because that's what I was saying earlier. We come in with our own shit and we come in, wanting to, feel comfortable and all the things. Then somebody else comes in, they want the same exact thing that we want for themselves. And so now, we make each other uncomfortable or whatever. So then it becomes difficult. Now the relationship becomes hard. Now it becomes tough. And now we got to deal with all the things because, I was good when you let me be comfortable and you were good when I let you be comfortable. And now, when your thing you're doing makes me uncomfortable and vice versa. Now the relationship becomes hard, right? And that's the tough part. Like how do you, like just trying to, we know it works for us, but then, like when you look at, how do I say this? Yeah, as people who help people, we go in and we try to help people kind of see each other's perspectives and try to understand, like try to work together. But in our own lives, shit, that is hard. Like me and Melissa, we challenge each other all the time. I feel like, and I think that where we are today, it's like I think our challenges are because we've been together so long, it become a little bit more what do you want to call it? Not entangled. But it
Enmeshed.
meshed. Yeah, our challenges become more enmeshed now because we have so much connected together. And so it's not so you can't separate one part without it involving another part now. So, I think that like the longer you're together, the more enmeshed that you become and the tougher it gets to
Or
kind of like
entangled.
yeah, to kind of work through some things, because it has so much attached to it, you know.
Right. And so much water under the bridge, right? And so many things. And it's almost like I get that. Like sometimes I would be like, well, clean break would be so nice. Because I don't know if I could deal with this and this history and this other resentment. And like, like sometimes it does feel like a clean break could be. And that's just how I operate, I think sometimes. And it isn't fair because it is very, and it can be very individualistic. But for me, removing myself completely from a situation allows me a fresh start, which allows me a freedom that sometimes the entanglements don't give me. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. And I'm not saying that that's right for everyone um, at all, because some people might be like, well, you're just throwing relationships away and, walking away from things just because they get hard. Um, and so you just have to decide for yourself, is this hard? Is the hard that it is worth it for me? And we get to have our own, I think we get to still have our own bottom lines, right? Like, even though we're non monogamous and we support our partners in doing things, there's some things that maybe I won't be okay with. And I think that's okay to
Mhm.
still have a thing that's like, I know that we have all this water under the bridge. And then there's a thing that you're doing that I'm actually don't want to be a part of anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what I wish I don't me and Melissa didn't have this early on, and I wish that we would have, I think it could have helped a lot. I think that, just what I work with my couples around is just checking in often,
Mhm.
updating each other when things shift and when things feel like they're changing or when things feel hard or when things like just check-ins on a regular, like so we can kind of like update each other and update our agreements or update our whatever it is, I maybe need to update my boundaries because of some things that are going on or whatever the case may be. I think that could be so helpful, just like constantly checking in and just saying, hey, like how are you doing? How are you feeling? what are you feeling like? Are you still feeling like you want to move forward? Are you feeling like you want to, whatever you're feeling. Like, let's talk about those things. As scary as they may feel, or big, or as big as they may be, let's talk about them, because then we don't have to hold as much resentment, right? We don't have to hold as much things that we may be holding because we're not saying anything, because we're trying to make sure that our partner is comfortable, or like, make sure that we're not ruffling feathers, or rippling the pond, and all these things. I think that, like just something so simple as just checking in and saying, hey, how are you doing? Where, and not be and it be a true safe space, and where you can really speak unapologetically and just say what's on your mind and what are you feeling like, and so we can kind of have that conversation that may be tough, like, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think those check-ins should include a check-in on the relationship itself. Like,
Mhm.
do we still want to be in this relation? Do you still want to be in this? Like, do you feel like
Yeah.
this aligns with you and whatnot? Because, the check-ins are nice, but if they're like rooted in or focused on like
It
keeping the
shouldn't.
relationship together,
Yeah.
then that's,
I think
it's only one
the
part.
check-ins should be, I like, we do, my partner and I do them weekly, and I tell my clients to all do them weekly, and non-monogamous or not, like, I think it's important to have a weekly check-in, like you're saying, Melissa, to talk about, there's obviously, I don't know if you all are familiar with radar from multi-amory. The radar is the thing that my partner and I have been using as of late, but checking in weekly around, um, various different things, like, are we spending, how's the quality time that we're spending, what questions do we have around money, are there any family commitments, are there any household chores, conversations about other partners, there's a list of them, and it even like, I like how they, gives you an option at the beginning, like, do you want support, do you want, empathy, or do you want advice? Like, you get to decide like what you're asking for today. Maybe you just want a hug and you want your partner to listen. Maybe you want some actual advice. Maybe you want some collaboration on solving a problem. Right. And so you get to kind of decide those on each of the topics that you bring up. But I think that it's very important to have those on an ongoing basis, especially if your relationship is shifting a lot, as it does in non-monogamy. It can shift from a day-to-day basis. It can shift in an hour-to-hour basis. And like, if you're not checking in, um, you're not connecting, and that's the biggest danger. Like, we don't have to always be on the same page about everything, but if we're not talking about it, we're disconnecting, right? And so not only are we not on the same page, we don't really even know what's going on.
Yeah. Kelly, I was thinking about what you were saying. You were like, there's too many therapists in one room. And like so many things came up for me on that. Like one, uh yeah, I mean, one part is that, yeah, we're like talking all these concepts and things and, whatnot. But also sometimes it feels a little bit like, it feels like a little bit like church. And I don't necessarily go to church, I'm not part of any religion or religious, but I do remember, having been to church. I remember, I know one part that I like about it is like sometimes like the messages or the conversation like really hits, and you feel like you're all there together, and like there's that community, that collective, and you're like, life is hard, and we're all here to acknowledge how life is hard. And it feels nice to be with each other, acknowledging that life is hard, and like we're relating, we're feeling each other, whatnot. And that feels really good. And you leave church and you're just like, all right, I'm back. I could get back out there. It's like I feel good. And then the week goes on and it just kind of dissolves because life happens again. And you're like, fuck. And so I used to think like, sorry, I'm a little long-winded on this, but I'm bring it back. I used to think like, dang, well, how do I keep that going? Or like, what, even this, like, wow, this was really good to be here. How do I bring this with me into the week, or into the 2 weeks until we get back here again? Like, and I was like, oh, is there practical things that we can do? And Mo, you mentioned a lot of them. I was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of practical things, but I might take this conversation into a whole left angle, but it makes me think about my now spiritual practice. I'm just going to call it spiritual practice, or just having something outside of, I think, like the heady, concepts that we speak about sometimes, or the practical things that we're always in search for or whatnot. Like, I've got to this place where there's like got to be something more out there than what I'm experiencing on a day to day, politically, socially, economically, relationship wise, or whatever. Like, it can feel exhausting. And what I was like, I need something to get by, and I don't know. I'm kind of in that space too, is mm, what am I trying to say? Melissa, bring it back. What am I trying to say? Um, hmm, I'm gonna pause there. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
It's okay. That's okay because I mean, how many times after we've talked have I sent a text? I love that episode. I love the topic. I love like where we went with it, and I've like really felt attached to it. I feel like it was really cohesive, and then in this one, I've been thinking I feel all over the place. I don't know exactly what we're talking about, but I loved when you said we're here for the lessons, and Mo was like, "This is what that's about." But I started out the whole half of this call being so all over the place. I was like, I actually don't want to speak because I'm lost and confused a little bit, and I think it's okay to be a little lost in all this. I feel like maybe you're a little bit lost, like even though you know it and you're feeling it, but a little lost and confused. Like, how do I bring someone else into this, or how do I take it forward with me, or like how do I communicate what I'm going through? And I just want to say I'm a little bit lost and confused in all the shit going on in life and relationship and the podcast and everything. Like it's okay to be just a little bit lost and confused in the sauce.
thank you so much for saying that. And I think that's why I love being here, because like there's just so much space to be lost and confused
Yeah.
and everything with you guys. And oh yeah, I really need that. And that feels good. And like beyond the lost and confused, like there's still something that we all feel, mutually here. And
Yeah, I think it just speaks to where we are today as a society. I think I'm feeling lost and confused as well today, and I think that just speaks to just where we are. So it just has us like trying to come up with all these solutions and reasonings and trying to solve all these things, like because like what is going on? Like how are we here? Just all the things, and so it just causes our brain or our body to go into fight or flight mode, so we're just just saying like what do I do, how do I figure this out, like I need to do something, like yeah, so I get it, yeah. And so during this podcast today, like I have had so many things pop in my head and I wanted to go in so many different directions, but I was like, man, I
Yes.
don't see the point of bringing that in, or yeah, that's not part of this. That would take it somewhere else. And what am I really talking about? And that's on a bigger scale, like so many things. So yes, I am with y'all. Yeah.
that's the part that I love about relating and
That's
relationships.
what we all geek out on together.
Yes. Um,
Yeah.
yes, that we can geek out on all that. And then also when it feels too much or confusing or lost, like we can just be here with each other. No headiness, no solutions, no, we get to just be here.
Relationship church.
I love it.
Who's the cult leader?
All
Kelly
of us.
Jones. All of us.
All of us.
Relationship
Colt Kelly, Colt Mo, Colt
church cult. Relationship church cult.
We should make an acronym out of our initials.
What? What is that?
We should make an acronym out of our initials. All of us. So it's all of us.
What is it? KMMW.
I don't know. I'm sure there's an app for it.
An app. Oh, like a word with all of
Yeah, like
our
put your initials in and make it to what all the
Oh
words.
yeah, I'm sure we can put it in the chat GPT and it'll give us something. I'm
Yeah.
positive. Yeah.
It's it's come. KWMM.
Uh,
Come to the relationship
Okay.
church cult.
Come.
love y'all. I gotta hop off.
It's pretty good, Melissa. It's
Okay,
pretty
love
good.
you.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.